Hello and welcome to this new edition of CREGÉS COVID-19 interview regarding social issues in aging in the context of this pandemic. I am your host, Mélanie Couture, institutional researcher at the Center for Research and Expertise in Social Gerontology, CREGÉS, at the CIUSSS West Central Montreal. So today for this interview, we will talk about the crisis facing older adults living with neurodiversity. And for this CREGÉS COVID-19 interview, we have the pleasure of having four people from CREGÉS. So Shari Brotman and Tamara Sussman, who are associate professor at McGill's University School of Social Work. Zelda Freitas, social worker and coordinator of the area of expertise in caregiving, and Daniel Dickson, PhD candidate in political science, Concordia University. So hello, everyone. So the first question I'm going to ask you actually is, what is meant by the term neurodiversity?
So allow me to answer that. Thank you for the question. Neurodiversity is actually a term that's been developed by disability rights communities that's really gained recognition and momentum worldwide. And it points to the diversity. It's an umbrella term that points to the diversity of neurodiverse people, both in terms of their own identities and social locations. That includes people, for example, living with intellectual and developmental disability, autism spectrum disorder, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, Down syndrome, among many other conditions. So neurodiverse people are themselves very diverse and have different realities and needs. So some may live independently and have no support. Some may require only a little bit of support, while others may need ongoing and daily support. So we can't put all neurodiverse people in one homogeneous group. And we have to be careful not to reproduce these ableist discourses about neurodiverse people in our society and in our work, for example, by assuming that they're dependent or incompetent or incapable, because in fact, neurodiverse people are resilient, capable, and strong, and have a lot to teach us about resisting discriminatory labels and how self-advocacy can be used to achieve recognition and advance rights, if only we listen.
So they are contributing to society.
Very, very much so, absolutely. And it's important for us in society generally, people in general, and also service providers to pay attention to their voices and to make room for people to express what they need, what their strengths are, and to be included at the decision-making table in terms of policies and programs that we develop. I just wanted to mention one other thing, though. This is around social exclusion, because we know that neurodiverse older people have faced social exclusion across the life course.
Right.
And it results, for example, one of the things we wanted to raise, and we raise in the article, is the issue of poverty, because neurodiverse people generally are 3 times more likely to live in poverty. And that has a lot to do with significant and underemployment and lack of educational and work opportunities among this population.
So they are refrained from contributing to society in a way.
Yeah, very much. And poverty, as we know, is linked to negative outcomes for COVID-19.
Yeah, for pretty much everyone, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, in a way. Okay. And so how exactly has COVID-19 affected older adults with neurodiversity, but also their family caregivers?
Mm-hmm. So I think Shari created a good segue here, because in part because of this exclusion, there's a lot of reliance on different programming to keep integrated, to keep engaged. And with our biomedical approach, where we really worrying about social distancing, worrying about transmission of COVID, everything got shut down literally in a minute.
Yeah.
Workers weren't allowed to see the people they were working with and supporting. people who might have been relying on home care coming at home, that was stopped. So the priority was on social distancing. And for a group who already has such difficulty with integration and socialization because of our own stigma, this really generated a severe impact. Daniel, you might want to say a bit more about the social isolation piece and housing.
Yeah, I think you're bang on. I think the medicalized nature of the response kind of created a justification for this sort of arm's length treatment of a population that had already been facing really pervasive social barriers, right? Stigma, discrimination has been sort of an everyday experience for neurodiverse older adults. And during the pandemic, there's been kind of like a rationale, or like it's been legitimized to kind of keep your distance. And so that has an impact, right? Also for people living in congregate housing, people living in group homes, a lot of the kind of normal tasks that are part of their day-to-day life the nature has changed of those tasks. So, you know, receiving feeding, receiving help with bathing, these kind of really personal tasks that are provided by support workers, the nature of those tasks has changed. The intimacy of those tasks has been taken away. You know, wearing PPE, having social distance, having different people performing these tasks. You know, it could be someone that you're used to doing this with every day, the same person, and now you have replacement staff coming in and doing it. And so there's just been a lot of challenges that have kind of come about as a result of the pandemic, and for people in receiving care from professionalized workers, you know, those challenges have been really amplified. Zelda, maybe you can speak to some of the challenges faced by people receiving care from family carers.
Absolutely. I think, you know, a majority of people living with neurodiversity are independent. They can be quite independent in their daily tasks and so on. But we also know that some require many hours of care and supervision. And family caregivers, mainly aging parents and siblings, take care of people with living with neurodiversity in both congregate housing situations as well as in home. And so what we saw was a significant impact on caregivers, on carers, both in home and as well as in congregate housing. For the congregate people that are living in congregate housing, what happened was that family caregivers were not allowed to enter. The restrictions were put in place, and therefore that created a lot of stress and distress for family carers. For those that were living at home, what happened on the other hand, was that they had a significant increase in care provision, and therefore there was another set of very, you know, a lot of stress, and the care burden was placed more on them. Less services were coming into the home, and so we saw a lot of isolation of family carers that were both caring for someone at home and being isolated from those that they were caring for, living in housing situations. So a lot of huge impact on families and family carers during this pandemic, partly due to the restrictions that were put in place, and partly due to the fact that we haven't really identified family carers as providing the majority of care to people that need it. I'm going to pass over to Shari. I think you wanted to talk a little bit about integrated knowledge and responses.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Zelda. Yeah, I think all of what everybody has said is really, really important. And one of the unique factors within COVID-19 is this issue of redeployment, so that service providers that were typically involved in support to older adults with neurodiversity and or their families got redeployed to other sectors, to essential service work, to emergency work, particularly when we were in Montreal in situations of being in the red zone. So it was a shutdown of service, a redeployment of workers that really had an impact. And one of the things that predates COVID, which is really important, is this lack of integrated services. And so what that means is, you know, imagine an older adult living with neurodiversity, and there's kind of a disconnect between aging services and between services for people with disabilities, and also in terms of mental health services. For example, we know a lot of older adults living with neurodiversity also have co-occurring mental health challenges. And so navigating these sectors that are literally in silos is very, very challenging for both the older person and their family. And there is, and there has been recognition all the way up the policy chain, also from the Quebec Health and Social Services Ministry, about this issue of siloing and integrated services. But to date, there has not been a lot of creation of these integrated services, and where they do exist, they are in a way piecemeal. They're small efforts for maybe the most severe, what we call severe and persistent situations. So a lot of people are left off the table. And service providers have noted time and time again that this lack of integrated knowledge and intersectoral exchange, what we say, really limits the capacity of the health and social care service system to respond to needs and realities. So, maybe this is sort of going to recommendations, but we really need increased resources to address these kinds of barriers and silos that that exist in the system.
So if I understand, is that some services are specialized for older adults, some are in mental health, some are for neurodiversity, but it's not the same care providers. So nobody has the expertise for all of those at the same time. So they have to go at different places for different services in a way. Okay.
Correct,
So,
correct.
yeah.
And
okay.
the integration, so the knowledge, so you may have a service provider that knows some aspect, but not the other. And so, there's required to be a consultation process and integrated knowledge process and a creation of like a specialized network of service providers who understand the intersections and the co-occurring nature of living with neurodiversity as a person ages.
So it's not like neurodiversity kind of disappears once you're 65 and now you're just an older adult. So it's kind of, it adds up. So
absolutely. And we find that there's a lot of people who, what we call like age earlier. So they're kind of demonstrating issues or situations, chronic health conditions, which we often see more in older people, but at a younger age. So 50 plus, 45 plus. But what happens now is, you reach 65. So you move from what we call rehabilitation services to the aging sector. And how does that move happen? And then you have to change your service providers, etc. I mean, other people would like to respond to that.
I want to sort of pick up what you said about redeployment and what Zelda was talking about around family caregivers. This is something that Shari and I thought a lot about during the pandemic. Really, family caregivers have been the invisible frontline workers here in the community. We heard a lot about long-term care, which clearly had a huge impact, and we deployed workers, as Shari mentioned. But there was radio silence for such a long time during the pandemic around what was going home in the community. And just to put this in context, about 4% of our Canadian older adults who have different health conditions, including people with neurodiversity, actually reside in long-term care. So much of this impact really was happening in the community.
Yeah, and nobody talked about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Zelda, do you want to add something about the?
I mean, I think it's, as people that know and work in the area of family caregivers, we know that 80% or more of care that's provided at home is provided by families. It doesn't change for the population of people living with neurodiversity. And I think we have a misconception that family caregivers are no longer involved. Just to add on to Tamara's point, that they're no longer involved when they're living in assisted living environments. And that's absolutely false. Families continue to be quite involved, may not provide perhaps the hand-on physical care, but are certainly involved in emotional care and social support and all of the tasks that need to be done. And I think all that we saw fall to the wayside during the pandemic. And it's a lack of recognition of all of the work that families actually do on a day-to-day basis. And it came, right to light, I should say, during the pandemic.
So today we kind of explained all the difficulties, issues that happened during COVID for this population. But what are the solution then? What do you propose?
I think that the first thing is building on what Shari talked about. There needs to be intersectoral collaboration, right? So we talked about how there's these silos. I think within each of those silos, you speak to people and they feel like they don't have the knowledge to provide the services that are required, right? So one is kind of creating formal mechanisms for collaboration between disability services, aging services, mental health services, and really preparing people working within those sectors to provide the types of services that are required. And then the second thing is that same spirit of collaboration can be applied to advocacy as well. So in kind of coming up with solutions from the ground level, there needs to be that same kind of spirit of collaboration and really positioning the perspectives of neurodiverse older adults at the front of the agenda, because we're finding these shortfalls in services for this specific population. And a big reason for that is that they're not afforded the opportunity to speak for themselves and say what is required. You know, they're not a politically powerful group, and there needs to be an effort within advocacy to really raise and prioritize the perspectives of this group so that we can find out what is required, because, you know, they are the expert informants on this. And maybe Shari can speak to sort of some of the types of supports that might be generated from those discussions.
Yeah, I think what's also been brought to light during COVID is the focus on like functional ability, and we need to move beyond just functionality. Can a person perform a certain task on their own, or do they need help for that particular functional task? We need to prioritize the delivery of emotional, psychological support, social responses, including opportunities for social inclusion, and to think proactively about supports in a very, very different way. And that requires increasing funding to think about social inclusion and to think about, you know, proactive responses. So that's what I would say about that. And, you know, during COVID, there was a lot of emotional trauma, a lot of loss and grief that goes unacknowledged, unsupported. And that's really important for not only the population and for their families, but also their support workers. So, you know, Daniel spoke really importantly before about those changes in the personal support work and those relationships, like loss of the intimacy of those relationships during COVID. And we really see with those losses, the loss of family and the loss of connection to day-to-day personal support workers and professional caregivers, how important they are, and how this resulted in real grief that went unacknowledged during COVID that we need to start paying attention to.
So it's the relationship with the care workers also that they lost because they had to be replaced or sent elsewhere also. So this is also part of the grief you're talking about.
That's right. That's right. So I think we have to think a bit more broadly about what we consider to be grief support. Mm-hmm. Not even to mention, you know, we lost a lot of older people to COVID, you know, during this time, and we have to pay attention to the grief of all members of our society. So maybe Zelda, do you want to speak a little bit more, like concretely, to the family component of that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Shari, for bringing that up. I think grief and the trauma that you speak of is going to affect our, you know, families for a long time. I think that we really have to start paying attention to that. Who carry the burden of that grief and that trauma was the families, right? People that were living in fear, a high anxiety, a lot of distress, and who was dealing with that while, you know, the reduction of services that were in effect during COVID. It was the families that had to take over, and they were also living with their own distress and the increase in care needs of the people that, you know, their family members. So we really need to start paying attention to that. We need to think about the idea of respite, you know, we know that respite is one of those services that tend to be put to the wayside and was put to the wayside during COVID. But we need to start thinking about respite as an essential service, as something that caregivers need a break from the day-to-day care. They need to have a little bit of it's a physical break, but it's also a psychological break. And it's so important for them to have that. And we will see the repercussions of that as well. So thinking about an essential service, respite as an essential service. We know that caregivers need psychological, social, and emotional support as well. And they also need help navigating the care system. And that was lacking during COVID as well, because, you know, professionals were deployed elsewhere. So they really lacked the normal support that they would get from their social workers, from their care team. And more of the burden was on them to try to advocate and navigate this system that we all explain very clearly is very difficult because it's all in silos at this point. I think what's really important as well for family caregivers is that we need to really start to consider them as essential care partners. And until we really acknowledge that partnership, I think family caregivers will always be left to the side, as we saw during COVID. And so I think we really need to start rethinking that partnership and rethinking that relationship. And then we'll see family caregivers at the table and helping to make these decisions and helping to put forward what their experience is so that they could get the proper supports that they need. Tamara, I think you wanted to add as well some peer initiatives that we can think for the future as well.
So thanks, Zelda. And I really like the way both Zelda and Shari framed, you know, it's emotional labor. We have to start thinking about the emotional element of support as labor. It's not just, it's what's behind the task. And, you know, there's family caregivers. There were also workers, as Shari mentioned, who were deployed and knew the people they were working with were suffering and were not ready, and we're not permitted, because of our focus on the medical, to provide the support. That creates a form of distress, and as Shari, you know, framed it, grief, that workers are now living with. And a lot of workers are suggesting that they could really use some peer-led initiatives, like some peer support, both to work through what they've been through and to talk through how to ensure that this emotional and social aspect of care doesn't fall by the wayside. So a lot of workers who'd been, you know, who are traumatized, who have moral distress as a consequence of this, the reaction thus far has been, oh, if you're feeling burdened, give us a call at this number, as if it's an individual, you know, problem of one person. Every one of those workers is feeling distressed, and particularly with this group. And what I've heard from speaking to some staff is that they really needed and would like some peer support and initiatives to get through these kinds of situations, and moving forward to be a part of the solution so that we don't replicate the response that we've had from this period of COVID.
So from what I understand is there needs to be a new structure within the healthcare system, and people who have multiple specialty, or at least have training to deal with people with neurodiversity. Also, we're supposed to be an integrated system, which is health and social services. But from what I hear, the social services part, the emotional part was kind of pushed aside during COVID, and people were saying, well, we're concentrating on functional and health and physical health mostly. So that was a big problem. And caregivers were kind of pushed aside, and it wasn't acknowledged all the work they were doing before, and all the work they actually had to do even more during COVID, especially within the community, because we're only talking about long-term care. Did I miss anything? That's pretty much. Do you have a word or something you want to the people at home or at work that are watching to remember? So what would be the end word for today's interview.
So how about if I start, and people, please feel free to add in. I think one of the things that's really important to remember, especially for all those of us who are listening and who are here today, interested in gerontology, right? In older adults. This issue, really, we're talking about older people living with neurodiversity and their family caregivers who are themselves aging. So we're speaking to a sort of complex, multifaceted issue and reality, which is exacerbated during COVID, but these are lifelong experiences of struggle with social stigma, with ageism and with ableism as people get older. And it requires an integrated and inclusive response. But I think what Daniel said was really the most important, is that in order to address issues and create solutions, we must involve older adults living with neurodiversity and their aging family caregivers, and those people that work directly with them together at the decision-making table. For me, that would be the most important point. So when you're thinking about your own work with older people living with neurodiversity, you can think about, how am I creating opportunities for us to engage together, to listen deeply to what people are interested in, to adapt our communications. That's what we say and how we say it and how we advertise in a way that can reach, is accessible to more people. And then to think about our programs and services to kind of address issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion within our organizations.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much for giving us information about these important issues, older adults and neurodiversity. For viewers, you can watch the other videos and interviews on the CREGÉS website. And for this particular interview, there will be a link to the abstract of the article if you want to know more about the subject, and also the infographic that explains the main points we talked about today. So thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.